Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Zers, and every other generation still above ground, welcome. I'm Steven with a V. Can you parallel park? If you walk through a modern day parking lot anywhere, you'll see people, like me, driving up and down the rows, searching for a spot close enough to make that short walk inside manageable. These efforts are often in vain, and so we park as close as possible and then pull out our canes and make the long trek to the store, limping painfully in through the front door. We all have people like this in our lives. Many older relatives who still, while articulate and intelligent, don't move as agile as they once did. And they just want to live their lives, run errands, go shopping, and get stuff done. They aren't asking for special treatment. They're asking for fairness, dignity, and the simple ability to live independently. As America's baby boomers age, this need's only becoming more urgent. The generation that helped build modern America is now facing mobility challenges that our cities and communities are not yet prepared to handle. The solution starts with something simple but powerful: more handicapped accessible parking spaces. The baby boomer generation, born between 1946 and 1964, represents one of the largest and most influential segments of our population. Today, tens of millions of boomers are entering their senior years. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 1 in 4 adults over the age of 65 lives with some sort of disability, most commonly affecting mobility. That means millions of Americans are struggling to walk long distances, climb stairs, or safely navigate busy parking lots. Yet handicapped parking spaces remain limited and often full, leaving many of us forced to park far from entrances or worse, turn back home. This is not just an inconvenience, it's a barrier to daily life. Imagine being 75 years old, recovering from knee surgery, or coping with arthritis, and finding that every available space is taken. Do you risk walking across the lot and falling, or do you give up the errand altogether? For many older adults, this is the daily question. A lack of accessible parking can mean missed doctor's appointments, skipped grocery trips, and isolation from community events. These aren't luxuries, they're basic parts of living with dignity. And then there are those people under the age of 65. The estimate for the entire population with a disability is about 44 million Americans, or about 13%. The Americans with Disabilities Act set a minimum standard for accessible parking back in the 1990s, but those numbers no longer reflect today's reality. The current standard is between 4 and 2% depending on how large the lot is. When those regulations were written, the percentage of Americans living with disabilities was significantly smaller. Our society has changed, and our infrastructure must evolve with it. The same generation that fueled the civil rights movement, advanced technology, and reshaped culture now deserves a renewed commitment to accessibility and respect. Adding more handicapped parking spaces is not just a matter of compliance, it's a matter of compassion. It's a way of saying that we value the people who came before us, the teachers, the parents, the veterans, and the workers who build the communities we live in today. When we fail to provide enough accessible parking, we're effectively telling them they no longer belong in public spaces. That's not the kind of society most of us want to live in. Accessible parking also benefits families and caretakers transporting aging parents and grandparents. For many, a simple outing becomes a stressful challenge when the right parking space isn't available. These moments of frustration and exhaustion can be avoided through planning and policy. Cities, shopping centers, hospitals, and clinics, and local governments can work together to expand the number and quality of handicapped parking spaces. Wider spaces for vans, smoother paths, better lighting, and stronger enforcement can make a major difference. Unfortunately, one of the biggest problems isn't the lack of spaces. It's misuse. Too often, drivers without placards occupy handicapped spots just for a minute, but that minute can cost someone else their independence or even their safety. Public education campaigns and stricter enforcement can help ensure these spaces serve the people they're intended for. Communities must take pride in protecting accessibility just as they protect children's crossings and emergency zones. For those in the U.S. with a handicap placard, know this. The only people you are legally required to show your DMV paperwork to are law enforcement officers, not any Tom, Dick, or Karen who demands to see it. As long as your placard is properly displayed, that's sufficient proof for parking purposes. This applies whether you're in a public lot or a private lot open to the public. However, on fully private property, such as gated or restricted access communities, property management may have their own parking rules. And if someone challenges you and insists on calling the police, it's reasonable to wait for the law enforcement to arrive, and then you can verify it to them, and they can go defuse the situation. Investing in more handicapped parking is also an investment in community health and economic stability. Older adults who can access stores, clinics, and restaurants easily are more likely to remain active, independent, and engaged. They continue to shop locally, volunteer, and support local businesses. Accessibility isn't charity, it's smart policy that benefits everyone. At its heart, the issue isn't about parking lots, it's about people. It's about ensuring that every member of our society, no matter their age or disability, can live with freedom and respect. It's about recognizing that one day most of us will need that extra space, that closer spot, that bit of help getting to where we're going. As the baby boomer generation ages, our increasing population ages. We face a moral and social responsibility to adapt our public spaces accordingly. Expanding handicapped parking is a small step that sends a big message that inclusion matters, that compassion still guides our decisions, and that we refuse to leave anyone behind. The time to act is now, before the problem grows beyond control. Our parents and grandparents deserve better, and so we must do better. Back, whether you like it or not, Meme 15. Now that I'm retired, I don't eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I eat brunch and lupper with a late snack. Steven with a V. If someone thinks that love and peace is a cliche that must have been left behind in the 60s, that's his problem. Love and peace are eternal. John Lennon. So God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, asked Noah to build an ark, but allowed the Holocaust without a word. When you have more than you need, build a longer table, not a higher wall. At exactly 11:11 a.m. every Veterans Day, November 11th, the sun aligns perfectly with the Anthem Veterans Memorial in Arizona to shine through the ellipses of the 5 marbled pillars represent each branch of the armed forces, illuminating the Great Seal of the United States. Thank you to those who have served and are currently serving. So until next time, save up that handicapped space for someone who really needs it. I'm Steven with a V. I'll see you on the next turn. Please like, share, and subscribe.